What does it cost to turn justice into a luxury? A private island, a secret plea deal, and a man whose fortune seemed to bend the rules of law itself. Tonight, we follow the money, how Jeffrey Epstein bought time, bent the rules, and exposed the business behind American justice. This isn't just the story of a scandal. It's the story of a system that can be negotiated if you're rich enough. Before we start, hit subscribe, because every week on this channel, we pull back the curtain on how money and power shape the world you live in. Let's begin with the man behind the headlines, Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't born into power. He started as a math teacher in New York City, just an ordinary man in an ordinary job. But in the 1980s, he stepped into the world of high finance. Through charm, connections, and an uncanny ability to win the trust of the ultra-rich, he built a fortune managing the wealth of billionaires. Soon, Epstein was no longer just a money manager. He became a gatekeeper to the elite. Politicians, scientists, business tycoons, and even royalty. His homes were legendary. A townhouse in Manhattan worth tens of millions, a ranch in New Mexico, a private jet, and, most infamous of all, a private island in the Caribbean. From the outside, he looked like the symbol of success. But beneath the luxury, dark allegations were beginning to surface. Allegations that would expose the cracks in the very system meant to deliver justice. The first serious cracks appeared in Palm Beach, Florida. In 2005, a parent went to the police with a shocking claim. Epstein had paid her underage daughter for a massage that turned into something far worse. The investigation uncovered a disturbing pattern. Multiple girls, many of them vulnerable teenagers, all telling similar stories. By 2006, local police handed the case to the FBI, expecting a federal prosecution for sex trafficking. It looked like Epstein was finally going to face real consequences. But then, something unexpected happened. Instead of a federal trial, Epstein struck a deal in 2007, known as a non-prosecution agreement. The deal allowed him to plead guilty in state court to lesser charges, soliciting a minor for prostitution. His sentence? Just 18 months, of which he served about 13. Mostly on work release, allowed to leave the jail during the day. Even more shocking, the agreement secretly granted immunity to potential co-conspirators, effectively shutting down the federal investigation before it even went to court. For victims and investigators, it was a stunning collapse of justice, one that would haunt the system for years to come. For legal experts, the 2007 deal was unlike anything they had ever seen. Federal prosecutors usually pursue trafficking cases aggressively, especially when minors are involved. But in Epstein's case, the federal investigation was quietly shut down. The agreement itself was signed in secret. Even the victims were kept in the dark until long after the deal was done, an extraordinary breach of victims' rights. At the center of it all was Alex Acosta, then the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida. Years later, Acosta would defend the decision by saying, "It was better than risking no conviction at all." But many saw it differently, as a sign that wealth and influence had bent the law. The plea bargain didn't just reduce Epstein's sentence, it also granted immunity to unnamed co-conspirators, effectively closing the door on any future prosecution of others who might have been involved at the time. This wasn't just a courtroom compromise. It was a demonstration of how money and powerful connections can tilt the scales of justice, long before Epstein ever set foot in a federal cell. More than a decade after the controversial plea deal, the story was far from over. In July 2019, federal prosecutors in New York's Southern District announced new charges against Jeffrey Epstein. This time, the case was built on stronger evidence: flight logs, financial records, and testimony from women who said they had been recruited as minors between 2002 and 2005. The indictment accused Epstein of sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. It painted a chilling picture: a network of recruiters bringing vulnerable girls, some as young as 14, to his homes in New York and Florida, under the guise of offering money for massages. Epstein was arrested at Teterboro Airport as he returned from his private jet. Unlike in 2007, there would be no easy plea deal this time. Prosecutors asked the court to deny him bail, calling him a danger to the community and a serious flight risk. For a moment, it seemed the system was finally ready to hold him accountable. But the most dramatic twist in the story was still to come. After his arrest, Epstein was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan, a high-security federal jail. He pleaded not guilty and prepared for trial, but the case never made it to court. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in his cell. The official ruling? Suicide by hanging. But the circumstances immediately fueled controversy. 2 guards who were supposed to check on him every 30 minutes had fallen asleep and later falsified records. The security cameras outside his cell malfunctioned that night, and Epstein had been taken off suicide watch just days earlier, despite a prior incident that suggested he might be at risk. The Department of Justice's Inspector General later reported serious failures in the jail's operations, but found no evidence of foul play. Still, the unusual lapses, combined with Epstein's powerful connections, sparked endless theories that his death was more than it seemed. For the victims who hoped to face him in court, it was a devastating end. And for the public, it left a haunting question: had the system failed once again to deliver justice? Epstein's death didn't end the story. In fact, it shifted the focus to one of the closest figures in his inner circle, Ghislaine Maxwell. Maxwell, a British socialite and longtime companion of Epstein, was accused of playing a critical role in his network, recruiting and grooming young girls for his abuse. In July 2020, she was arrested by the FBI at a secluded property in New Hampshire. Prosecutors alleged that between 1994 and 2004, she lured vulnerable minors with promises of mentorship and opportunity, only to deliver them into Epstein's control. Her trial in late 2021 was one of the most closely watched in recent history. Witness after witness described how Maxwell had gained their trust, only to betray it. In December 2021, the jury found her guilty on 5 federal counts, including sex trafficking of a minor and conspiracy. In 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Even as she appealed her conviction, the case against Maxwell sent a powerful message. The network that enabled Epstein's crimes would not disappear with his death. It also proved that the quest for accountability was far from over. In January 2024, the long-sealed court documents from earlier civil cases related to Epstein began to be unsealed. For years, these files had been locked away, fueling speculation about who might be named inside. When the documents were finally released, they included hundreds of pages, depositions, emails, flight records, and references to dozens of prominent figures. But here's what mattered most. Being named in the documents did not mean those individuals committed a crime. Most were mentioned as acquaintances, witnesses, or simply because their names appeared in travel logs. Prosecutors made it clear, only the evidence of wrongdoing could lead to charges, and for many of those named, no such evidence existed. Still, The unsealing of the records reignited public outrage and debate. It revealed just how far Epstein's connections reached, and reminded the world that wealth and influence had given him extraordinary access to the corridors of power. For the victims, these documents offered a form of vindication, proof that their claims had been buried for too long. And for the public, they raised a deeper question. How many more secrets remain hidden behind sealed court files? Behind every headline in the Epstein saga, there was money changing hands, enormous amounts of it. For years, Epstein spent millions on high-powered lawyers, crafting plea deals, fighting subpoenas, and keeping cases tied up in court. That legal firepower wasn't just expensive, it bought him time and leverage. After his death, the focus shifted to his estate. In 2020, the Epstein Victims Compensation Program was created to provide restitution to those harmed. By the time it closed in 2021, it had paid out more than $121 million to over 150 victims. A staggering sum, but still a fraction of what many felt was owed. Meanwhile, the broader system around Epstein, law firms, financial advisors, even some service providers, profited for years from his wealth. The same fortune that allegedly enabled his crimes also fueled a small economy of professionals who had little incentive to ask questions. This is where the story goes beyond one man. It shows how, in a system driven by money, justice itself can become transactional. Those with resources can negotiate lighter deals, stall investigations, and sometimes even escape accountability, while victims often face long, expensive battles just to be heard. It's a reminder that the true cost of injustice isn't only measured in dollars. It's measured in trust. Trust that the law applies equally to everyone. The story of Jeffrey Epstein isn't just about one man's crimes. It's about a system that allowed him to thrive for decades because power and money often speak louder than the law. For the victims, justice came too late. For the public, the case exposed an uncomfortable truth. When the wealthy can bend the rules, trust in the system begins to collapse. Epstein's legacy is a warning. It shows how influence can shield the powerful and how hard it is to hold them accountable. If you believe justice should never be for sale, share this video. Hit like so more people can see it. And subscribe, because here we expose the hidden side of money and power every single week. The fight for a fairer system isn't over, and understanding how it really works is the first step to changing it.